many of our people who are thinking more deeply and more broadly, are looking at it as it actually is, and are beginning to see it more in the international context and the relation that it has with the African struggle, a human rights struggle, or the struggle for human rights. And as such, we can then take it into the United Nations
and bring about the freedom of these people by any means necessary.
Hello family, welcome to We Charge Colonialism. We Charge Colonialism is an organization of Africans in the United States that are seeking recognition that the United States government has essentially been in the position of being a colonizer of African people, and therefore we suffer from internal colonization. One of the things that we take very serious is obtaining the right to self-determination. That is the right to control the affairs of your own community, as people before us, such as Malcolm and Marcus Garvey, were very adamant about when it came to African people controlling our own destinies. And so if you're interested in joining that effort, you can go to rechargecolonialism.org. If you're interested in being an active member and actually participating on a committee, all you have to do is fill in a membership application. If you're only interested in just getting updates, you can also fill in a membership application and you'll get updates on our organization. So by now, I'm sure you guys have heard Michael Jordan, who is the famous basketball player. A while back, he made a statement. The statement was that Republicans buy shoes too. Now, you might ask, why do people care if he said that? The statement was in regard to Michael Jordan selling Jordans. The famous shoe brand has made him I think he's a billionaire. And Michael Jordan, when basically asked to make a comment or give his commentary on some type of political process, his thought process was that I don't want to alienate the Republican fan base, so I'm not going to come out against Republican candidates or Republican policies. Now, this is the same process that a lot of black celebrities or celebrities of races where they don't want to alienate a certain fan base. This is the same policy that a lot of them practice. And so this is not shocking. My big issue is when I hear people who get upset that Michael Jordan said this, but number one, they don't care about those black actors or actresses who say nothing, because to me, if you're not saying anything, that's saying something. If you seen Trayvon Martin get killed by George Zimmerman and George Zimmerman walk and you have nothing to say about that, that's a statement. If you've seen Michael Brown get shot down in the street by Darren Wilson and you have nothing to say about that, that's a statement. That's my position, especially if you are of the people who are being oppressed and you have nothing to say about those types of things. You're making a statement. So this whole idea that I can just be quiet and I won't get any smoke, I won't get canceled, that's an issue. Because if anything, you would think that people who are in a position to also be shot by the police, who are in the position to also have their children be shot or killed unjustly, that they would have an issue with social justice when it's being talked about by everyone at the time when Trayvon Martin was killed and when Michael Brown was killed. So that's my one issue. My other issue is I don't really care if Michael Jordan felt that way about Republicans versus Democrats. I mean, to me, I have more of a problem with people who don't question the Democrats, you know, the people who don't question the fact that black people have voted for the Democrats. I have more issues with those people probably than people who have the sentiment of Michael Jordan. Because Michael Jordan's mindset was more so, I'm staying out of it, versus other people whose mindset has been, I'm going to go with the one side that has always said what I wanted to hear without actually doing anything about those words, and I'm going to condemn people who do not vote the same. You see what's happening right now with the presidential election. You see what's happening right now with the presidential election. A lot of people are going off on people who supported Bernie Sanders, or people who just didn't want to be involved inside of the election anyways, because of the candidate of choice for the Democrats is Joe Biden, who is someone who has a history of supporting segregationists, has a history of racist policies, including being one of the people who was the architects of the 1994 crime bill that extended mass incarceration far past anything that had been done by Reagan, far past anything that had been done by previous presidents. A lot of people are upset about that, the fact that he's the candidate, and about what does that say about the DNC? What does that say about this party that's supposedly supposed to represent us? There are people who, again, whether or not they were going to vote for Bernie Sanders, or people who just wanted to sit out, period, because Bernie Sanders also has a questionable history as far as African Americans. A lot of people are saying that they're sitting out of this election, and yet those people are being condemned by people who have the attitude that whoever the Democrats choose, even if they're choosing someone that doesn't represent our community or our interests, we're going to choose them, and we're going to blast you for not voting because we want that person to defeat the Republican, and in this case, you know, Trump's the boogeyman. And just another side thing I want to say about that, don't think for a second that if Trump was not the Republican nominee that they still wouldn't be pulling up bull crap. They would have still been pulling the bull crap of saying, you have to vote. We have to vote to get George Bush out of office. We have to vote to get, who was before him? George Bush Sr., Reagan. We have to vote to get Nixon. They were always going to use that tactic in order to get you to vote. So all of you who think that, oh, we're only voting because it's Trump that's up for election, don't think that you would have been saying the same thing had it been another Republican, because again, the way that things are poised to us is that Republicans are going to do bad to the black communities and the Democrats are going to do good to the black community, even when the Democrats that are up for election did bad to the black community, such as people like Bill Clinton, such as people like Joe Biden, such as people like, again, Barack Obama. Despite the fact that evidence shows, evidence being legislation, evidence being actions taken by those administrations, that those politicians are not going to do anything for you, we're going to pretend that they do, and we're going to make you feel bad if you do not go along with this charade. So, that aside, with the issue with his statement, the thing that I do want to talk about in the context of We Charge Colonialism is the pacification of black people due to capitalism. Now, we know that the capitalist system, which was created by Europeans for European rule. That is what how capitalism came to be. There's always been buying and selling. You know, there's always been ownership. There's always been individual or private ownership. That's always existed. However, what has not always existed was an economic system that has benefited white supremacy. And that is what capitalism was built to be. Capitalism came into being at a time when Europe wanted to go into other parts of the world and go and exploit them for their natural resources because Europe had none. So they had to create a system that was going to ensure that they won and that we lost. And what we see consistently, I've never seen evidence to the contrary, is that how capitalism does operate is that we're always losing while those who are in power are always winning. We might have some black people who win a little bit. We might have some black people who get a little something, but the overall black community who we should be concerned about, I would think if you're someone who considers yourself not just African, but someone who considers yourself of the people, I would think that you are not okay with just a few people being okay, or just a few people advancing. I would think that you want the collective community to advance. So that's the issue with the system of capitalism. And what Michael Jordan's whole confession basically shows is that, number one, capitalism is always going to be used to destabilize black people, because one of the operations of the system is to put certain people in a position to actually supposedly do things for the community. So you hear a lot of people saying, I want to get into the system, I want to get in this company so that I can help black people, I want to get in this position of power so that I can help black people. But most times, I would say 90% of the time, and that's being generous, that doesn't happen, because once you're actually in that position, you're put in that position where you really don't want to show affection to the community who's being oppressed, because you are benefiting the oppressor. Think about the best example of that was President Barack Obama. So, of course, President Obama, he was put in office by black people who said that, hey, we have to get this man inside of there, and from there he'll be able to help us. Well, actually, once he got in office, that wasn't what happened. Instead, the same people who said we have to get him in there to help us were now saying, well, we can't do anything because he has to be able to still appeal to white America, and therefore he can't show too much allegiance to black America. These are the same mind tricks that are used not just inside of politics, but it's also used inside of economics. It's also used inside of corporations. You have people say, oh, we're going to celebrate. There's the first black CEO of this company, the first black executive of this company. And then when that person's in power, let's say they can actually do something for us, or let's say they can actually speak out about an issue that's going on that pertains to us. More times than not, you will hear excuses for that person not to do that. And if that person doesn't do anything, we'll still celebrate them because we're just happy to see us being represented in a company, even if that same company has policies that actually negatively affect us. So this is how capitalism operates in such a way that it benefits the power structure and silences our people. So many of our people are silent on issues. So many of our people, I notice, even organizing with We Charge Colonialism, one of the issues that I often notice is that people who are supposed to be caring about their own community, caring about their own well-being, feel like they can't do anything because they have to make sure that they are being a better employee than they are being a better member of their community. What I mean by that is you have people who don't want to be bothered with politics. They care about the issues. They care about black people. They care about the representation that we're getting. They care about there being change, but they don't want to actually do something outside of their work because to them, their work comes first. Whether it's because of a time issue or because they're afraid that if they do something that it might stigmatize them further into the future, this is just something that is going to keep them from actually being active inside of the black liberation struggle. Understand that when black people were at the point where they're like, listen, I have nothing to lose, that's when we got the most. If you want to talk about what was happening in the civil rights movement versus what's happening now, why our people aren't organized, why our people aren't going out in the streets and actually trying to do something to consolidate power, why our people aren't trying to get representation that is actually pertinent to our real issues. What's going on now that's different from what's going on then is that our people's allegiances have been split. We have forgotten about the fact that we do not have a stake in this system. Any stake that we have in this system can be easily taken away from us. And look at this, look at the many people of our community that have been put in position just for that to be stripped of them. We often hear about people, I notice like on Twitter, for example, a lot of people will be upset when people who are in our community are stripped of opportunities where they're the one who gave them the opportunity, again, was outside of the dominant culture. The dominant culture that has not represented us to the fullest extent. Keep in mind that this can be expected. Why are you protesting something that is not our decision? So what we have to keep in mind is that when our people are put in a position where we're not getting something or where we're deprived of something, so let's say, for example, someone was made a corporation CEO, but then next thing you know, that position was taken from them without due process. Something like what happened with Steve Harvey. Remember, Steve Harvey had all of these different deals inside of different TV companies and whatnot, and next thing you know, the power structure that gave him that power just changed their mind, and just like that, he was out of a job, and now he doesn't have a talk show, and he doesn't have some type of night show he had. That same system is a system that we are benefiting without getting anything in return. So our allegiances are split. How many times do you think Steve Harvey actually held his tongue about speaking out against things in the black community because he did not want to stigmatize people who were going to provide him with a talk show? In fact, the best example, as many of us remember, Monique actually went on his show. It's okay. Remember, Monique went on his show not too long before he actually lost the talk show, and what she was saying was, I was dealing with discrimination when I was in Hollywood, and Steve essentially said, well, I didn't come to your defense because, hey, we black. He said, we black out here. So, Steve Harvey, from doing that, he actually thought he was protecting himself, but now, next thing you know, he's out of a job from the same people who he was trying not to offend. So understand, when our allegiances are split the way that they are, that puts us in a position where we are begging someone who does not have the same interest as us to do right by us. So it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that this is an issue that keeps coming up in our community. And if anything, I want this video to be a video of self-reflection. We are a colonized people in the United States. We are a people who are without power over our own circumstances. We are a people who are at the mercy of a government, at the mercy of a power structure that has no allegiance to us. That being the case, as a people in this position, are we still going to allow the same system to deprive us of our human rights while we are actually doing things that are going to benefit them, and remain silent on our own injustices, remain immobile on our own issues, not do anything to change our circumstances? Are we going to continue to allow the status quo to be the status quo? Or are we going to say, let's be honest, I don't really have a stake in what's going on. Yes, I work. Yes, I have this, I have that. But at the same time, while I have to make money, absolutely, while I have to take care of my family, absolutely, I'm very well aware that these companies that will tell me to be silent, those same companies are not going to necessarily mean good for me in the end. I'm not saying go out there and quit your job and don't have a way to take care of your family. Absolutely not. But what I am saying is, if you are speaking truth, if you are speaking something that's going to benefit you, don't be immobilized by this system of capitalism. This capitalist system has no allegiance to you. If you're in a job where you feel like you have to be silent when it comes to the truth, I suggest that you get out of that position. I suggest that you not be in any type of system, any type of corporation where your own well-being is a threat to the preservation of that corporation. And if you are someone who works, I would suggest that you try to find any opportunity you can to organize with the Black community that does share your same interests. So that's all we have for this video. And we will see you in the next video.